there's a good example that I should share with you about what's happening at the, I'll call it the distribution edge, the creative space there. So we spent years developing new algorithms that we call autonomous energy systems. It kind of riffs off autonomous driving vehicles, but it's really about hierarchical distributed controls of millions of interconnected energy things, so the Internet of Energy things, if you want to think about that. So that could be distributed photovoltaics, storage systems, home energy management systems or commercial systems, building systems, EV chargers, other assets that are in the system, and think about those as small pockets, microgrids, micro cells that can self-optimize and then talk to their nearest neighbors, then optimize in the nearest neighbor surrounding, and then hierarchically then talk up and optimize regionally. So under this rubric of autonomous energy systems, we've shown in a simulation mode that you could optimize, for example, tens of millions of interconnected devices, including PV storage batteries, EV chargers, in the Bay Area, for example, and deal with all of the variability that would come. We're rolling out pilots now across the country in doing that in specific locations where communities and creative rural co-ops or creative utilities are willing to embrace this experiment of how do we take advantage of distributed hierarchical controls and optimization for locations that fit into the overall operating system. And they have exactly the characteristics that you're talking about. Lower operating costs, better optimization, lower overall costs, and of course they're all low carbon solutions on that front. So expanding that idea and getting that to be utilized across a whole service territory is really the next step in that direction.
So you paint a very interesting possibility, which is that companies could be an anchor in a community to engage a whole range of other companies and other kinds of customers to create this this community, broader energy community, where the load can be balanced, where the solutions can be combined together, and it can, again, provide a lot of value to the company because it can bring about lower costs, but also provide value to the grid and customers as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about it from our standpoint, it's kind of a prototypical example of a public-private partnership where the knowledge created in the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, which was supported by federal research dollars and really creative scientists, partners with small companies, innovative companies, and utilities and communities to roll out this, I'll call it grid of the future. And it's really grid of today, which is just being built in different pieces. And so we think it's a good example to continue on. We also think it leverages this idea that you've championed in terms of non-capital intensive opportunities for doing grid optimization. Then I've written a whole bunch on integrated energy systems, and so tightly coupled integrated energy systems where you might think about 2 or 3 different types of generation. So think renewables and nuclear, right? Principally, nuclear creates heat, renewables directly, nominally, except for concentrating solar, produces electricity, right? We have almost always used nuclear to convert that heat to power. But if you think about coupling them, you have an opportunity to create heat, power, and use them for heat or power purposes, whether or not that's electricity into a grid, potentially conversion to hydrogen, possibly even a district heating and cooling system or an industrial process. And so this idea of tightly coupling energy systems can in one way be thought of as multiple input and multiple output, or in finance terms, multiple cost streams and multiple product streams, or multiple revenue streams.
I'm glad you said revenue.
Right?
There. I was worried about that.
Is that an opportunity that has been thought through as you think about renewable energy finance or renewable project finance, or is it something that's new and deserves a bit more creativity being put to it and testing?
I think it's new and needs some more testing. Again, I think as we talked about before, that kind of approach will challenge conventional project financing because, as you say, multiple revenue streams, multiple technologies, variable revenue streams, these really challenge conventional project finance techniques. But having said that, again, I'm quite optimistic that really, again, when we think about the inefficiency of the system, there are lots of innovators, both from a technology standpoint, from a business standpoint, and from a finance standpoint, that are looking to wring out this inefficiency, both the energy inefficiency and the financial inefficiency of the way the system has been set up. So now we talked about the constraints that of the traditional utility business model. We talked about the constraints of the grid architecture. And we also touched on sort of the constraints, as it were, of the innovative energy industry. And what I mean by that is talked about storage and the way the storage industry has been pushing battery storage as opposed to other alternatives. And that's been a creature or result of the way that renewable energy projects have been supported by government policy, which is technology by technology. So there are these whole range of different structural silos that have been built in. But against all that are the possibility of innovation unleashing all this inefficiency or trying to arbitrage away all this inefficiency. And so that's why when you talk about this idea, you're really talking about a way to create more efficiency. And I think that I'm not sure exactly who's going to figure it all out, but I'm pretty sure that the ability that when we link together financial technology and business model innovation, there are going to be people that are going to be working on this problem.
If you had 2 or 3 really concrete messages for them to how to embrace this change at the speed and the scale that's required, what are those key messages for how they need to lead?
Well, I think too many companies think that the energy future is going to look a lot like today, maybe marginally changing slowly over time, and things are happening very, very quickly. So even companies that aren't in the energy business need to have an open door to innovation. We've talked about the possibility of connecting with different kinds of partnerships, and I think that's an opportunity of potential value. I think that companies need to partner, for example, with a place like NREL to understand more about what technologies are coming and how to think about some of these different possible futures that could take place, some of the analytics that we've talked about.